What's going on today, guys? A real brief video about what we've been seeing this week and what we've been dealing with. Worm is the word for this week. Army worms are invading. So hunker down, arm yourself, and stay tuned. And we'll see what we can do. All right, the fall army worm. What a scourge, man. We've been working really hard to keep the heat from burning up lawns. We've been working hard to keep fungus from eating them. Messing them up. And now this stupid worm comes and eats them. You do have some lines of defense, but it's hard to judge it out. You never know what year or exactly when you're going to have a problem. Last year didn't really see many of them. Year before last I lost a couple of yards, so it doesn't always make sense to try to get out ahead of them and do a preventative deal, because you might not even have them. So this year they're exceptionally bad. I started hearing from guys. I'm in eastern North Carolina, and I started hearing from guys down in the Charlotte area saying they were getting them the end of July, early August. So I said, okay. So I got out and started running a preventative round of acelepryn on most of my better lawns. Right toward the end of getting to that round, getting all this done, I was putting it in with the fungicides on the fescue and some of the better Bermuda yards I was spraying. There toward the end of that cycle, I ran across a couple of my fescue yards that already had spots that had damage. So but I think I'm going to be fairly okay. I've had a couple of Bermuda lawns get eat up, but my phone has been ringing like mad with landscapers saying, hey, come look at one of my yards for me, or homeowners that aren't my regular customers in programs saying, hey man, come help me out, my yard looks terrible. And it's been army worms in every case. And I've seen them a fair bit in fescue, but historically they like hybrid Bermudas a lot better. But they have really been destroying these fescue lawns. I even saw a St. Augustine sod, freshly done sod job, devastated. And I did take a little bit of a picture of that, but I didn't get much video footage of any of this stuff because I've been busy. Anyhow, I've got one here today that I suspect I've got some problems in some hybrid Bermuda with some worms, and I'll show you how to do the test to determine if you have them and what some of that damage looks like and what the worm looks like. So we'll do the test here. Not really a whole lot to say. I'm not much of a worm expert or any kind of bug expert for that matter. The issue with these things is you're gonna have a few life cycles, and with a bug like these things, that means that a moth will lay eggs, then you'll get these little worm deals, and then they'll turn into a chrysalis, or basically like a cocoon, a little bullet looking gizmo in the ground. You can't kill that thing with herbicides or anything. It's kind of bulletproof in its little bullet. But anyway, so you want to, if you're going to try to spray it with something like bifenthrin or a contact insecticide like that, you're going to want to catch that small worm when it's just come out of the egg. These big guys like this, you're going to have trouble killing him. Or at least that's my experience. You always hit the phone. That's my experience. I try to use things like acelepryn. The timing is not as crucial on that because it has a real long residual, and you spray it and it's going to be there, and it should be catching them It should be there when the bug is there at its right life cycle for the stuff to kill. That's my understanding anyway. So a celiprin will do you good. Bifenthrin is what we've been spraying to kill them on contact with, but got a good buddy who's in the ag world, and he says they see them in hay and peanuts and stuff like that, and that they are becoming pyrethroid resistant. So bifenthrin might not kill them. And a big worm like this guy, bifenthrin might not kill that either. Me handling it a lot has apparently killed it though. Been playing with it a little bit. Okay, so in the ag world, on their peanuts and hay and stuff like that, small grains, they're having armyworm problems, and they're able to use products like Intrepid Edge, which has a couple of modes of action in it, and I think there's a newer insecticide in there that they're not as likely to be resistant to. Things like Coragen, and Coragen is actually the same thing as a celiprin, just as an ag label. So that's the ag world version of a celiprin. So we can use a celiprin. So I think the ag world is saying Coragen is good. So on the turf world, we're going to go with a celiprin. I feel like I've killed some of them with bifenthrin spraying them, but he's saying that they're more or less becoming resistant to it. So that might not be a tool in the toolbox for you. So look for things like a celiprin. You can use what's that? Cruddy. 7. It'll come to carbaryl. Carbaryl I don't like because it's an indiscriminate killer, and I mean it's going to kill everything in the dirt, earthworms, anything out there is going to kill. So I mean, you know, there's that to think of, and I mean you want some of that beneficial stuff in the ground. So I don't particularly like the idea of carbaryling them, but if that's the way you want to play, go ahead. So our game plan is using a celiprin. If I keep messing with that worm, if you get out early with it in say June-ish, you're gonna want that 6 to 8 ounce range rate. So on ones that we're coming a little later with, I might be at 3 ounces or something, because we don't need much of a residual, because as soon as our temperatures start dipping down in the 50s or so, this worm is gonzo. All right, so I'm gonna show you how to do the test, and we'll go look at the spot and test it. And I've got a little bit of video, shaky crazy video that I shot on some yards spraying for these things, and what damage looks like in some different types of grass. So stay tuned for that. Man, these things are just everywhere. They're trying to eat my hat. You just put you a couple tablespoons of dish soap in a beaker or pitcher, gallon of water or so, and fill it up with water and dump it on the ground. And if you got worm problems, you see them come jumping up out of the ground. Pretty simple. This is some hybrid Bermuda. I mean, we've been seeing some similar damage to this in different types of grass this week. In the Bermudas, I feel like they like Bermuda a lot more, I think. So you're going to see them in Bermuda more, but we've seen them in a lot of fescue, and they really seem to destroy the fescue. But I almost think we can get the Bermuda to recover. It's going to be kind of a hard pull to get it to come completely back out by the end of the season here, being that it's mid-September. But I'm assuming armyworms is the problem we got here, and I'll show you the test. Stand by. We've got our soapy water here, and we're going to put it on about a square foot of turf and see how many worms come up, if any worms come up. I've seen it do varying things this week, but usually if you've got more than 1 or 2 per square foot, you're going to want to try to do something about it. So let's see if we can get this focused in and see if we can see what happens. Just dishwashing liquid and water. Stand by. There's one. They're gonna come pouring out kind of fast. They don't like this. There's another one. There's another one. They're in here, so there's 3 or 4 that I'm seeing right now in this little area. See if any more come up. There's that one. Where'd he go? Oh well, but anyway, you get the idea. They're in here. There's one. These are big, so they're going to be difficult to kill. Well, that's what I sat there and picked out in just a second or so out of that 1 square foot. So we've definitely got an infestation. Some of these are scaring on up over 1.5 inches long. So they're big ones, and there's one that's 1 inch. But you get the idea. That's what they look like. They've been eating a lot of grass. You're going to get a few life cycles out of these things, so you might need to spray a couple times if you're using a contact like bifenthrin. That is assuming that bifenthrin is killing them and they aren't resistant to it. That's why I'm using something like a Celiprin that has a pretty long residual, and I won't have to spray multiple times, and I don't have to be as concerned about where I'm catching them in their life cycle. Like, for example, I mixed a Celiprin and bifenthrin for this one. I may or may not be able to kill those great big worms, but once they do their thing and the next crop hatches or whatever, they likely won't survive the Celiprin application, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. 2 pair of glasses up here. I'm rigged up. All right. So, in short, fall armyworms suck. They really like hybrid Bermuda, but I feel like with this application and some fertilizer, I may be able to get it to recover more or less before frost. Maybe, maybe not, but I mean, I don't feel like any damage here is permanent. In the fescue yards we've seen, they're done. Luckily here it is in September, and they're going to be overseeding those shortly, so they just have to start again. But and I would recommend in your fescue yard, if they've eaten it up, to if you're going to reseed before maybe October or something, I would go ahead and try to treat those worms, because they'll eat that new grass too. This week I've only lost a few yards. Well, I say lost. I mean, I've only had a few with some heavy. I had a really nice Bermuda yard at a really nice house. The backyard got eaten up. It had some pretty major damage in it, probably a little bit worse than this, but did the same thing over there and put out a good dose of fertilizer, so hopefully it's recovering. Hopefully. But it really breaks my heart. I had a lot of landscapers and friends and just people in the community call and have me come check out the yards, and some of the landscapers, I know they just worked tirelessly to keep this fescue alive in eastern North Carolina, and they've done their fungicides and then got whacked by this underground beast. And they were discouraged, and I felt bad for them. And like I say, and I know there's homeowners out there that work hard on their stuff too and followed all the things, and then this comes up. It's like, what's next? But as long as you keep your yard outside, you're gonna have problems like this. You never know. So unless you put your yard inside, you're gonna have bug problems. I'll show you some of the damage in a fescue yard and some in a St. Augustine sod, a freshly laid sod. The sod farm up here even put out an alert like a week or two ago telling everybody who had some freshly laid sod they better get out on it with some armyworm treatment, because apparently they've been eating them up. But anyway, so I sprayed a bunch of sod for guys and yards and everything else. So I've been on turf 911 call this week. this side not as affected as bad. This is new sod. It's just tacked down actually. But this side, that's definitely army worm damage. And like you said, we saw them coming up out of there. So fertilizer, acelepryn, and bifenthrin. Okay, this one, it's supposed to be fescue. Landscaper called me out to look at it. There's nothing left. I'm suspecting army worms. We'll try the old dish soap tester-oo here. See what we come up with. Looks like there's a little grass here, so maybe they've been in this area. There they come. Where'd he go? Some of the questions I've been getting asked by people when I've been spraying their yards for these things is like, where do they come from? Like I said, my understanding is they do not overwinter here, so more than likely that moth is riding up on storm systems and such out of the deep south. These hurricanes are pushing them up here, things like that. So the thing's a pretty good flyer apparently, so it gets up here, the moth lays the eggs, and like at ball fields and stuff, chain link fences, especially if they got these little plastic strips in them, they love something like that to lay eggs in, and they're in little clusters, and you'll see them up on that. I've seen them on play sets, fences, air conditioning units, the walls on houses, posts, everything. And a lot of times the damage will radiate out from those structures, but this time it's not been quite so apparent as that. It's just been really widespread. Apparently there's a lot of these damn worms around. The trusty permagreen's been spraying so many insecticides this week, it's got dead bugs all over the front of it, like I've been driving it at night like a car. I love this thing. I'm not generally a big fan of like a preventative insect control. I feel like there's an ecosystem out there, and when you kill one thing out of it, you kind of throw that off. But with these army worms, it's a whole different story. Unfortunately, they just devour everything, and so I am a big in favor of getting out with something like acelepryn in advance or something like that. And when I say in advance, that if you're on your game, if you get it out through June and July, you should be in good shape. You know, check your label for the rates that are going to give you control. They're going to lead you this long into the season. And if you're really worried about it, I don't see what's wrong with coming on with a little extra dose of bifenthrin in September or so. Hot rod. But the deal with bifenthrin, like my ag buddy said, they're becoming resistant to it. So you can't win. It's always going to be something. Signs to look for with these things, obviously brown turf, and it's usually pretty large patches that just move out across the lawn. But if you've got a lot of various vermin, possums, raccoons, Tyrannosaurus rex, etc., digging up stuff, eating worms out of your yard, that's a good sign. And birds feeding on them. And then I showed you the soap and water test that'll get them. So that's how you'll tell if you got them. And in the fescue, you can look at the leaf blades and see actual little bite marks along the edge of the leaf blades. In the Bermuda, the blade is so fine I can't really see the damage in them. It's just usually they just eat the whole leaf off the blade and leave you with the stem. But just use the little soap and water test, and that'll let you know. And if you got more than a couple in a square foot worth of turf, you might want to start treating those things. And you want to get them early when they're little bitty tiny worms. You can kill those big worms like I just pulled up, hard to kill. Yeah, this seems like about a fitting way to end this week. I think I can put a plug in that and keep rolling. I think I'm about caught up on my worm spraying for now until they start calling next week. Anyway, I hope you guys don't have problems with them, and if you do, I hope some of this so-called expert information helps out. See you next time.